It is a very somber day in Dolphin land as the Dolphins are officially into their offseason after being eliminated yesterday in the wild card 26-7. We got a lot to talk about today. Who's to blame for the offensive collapse, especially over the last 3 weeks? Is Stephen Ross even going to open up his checkbook to keep this core together through restructures and such, being $41 million over the cap? A lot to talk about. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new. Let's get into it.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it!
You have got to be kidding me.
Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score!
Field down the near side, that open. Touchdown!
The run from Tua Tagovailoa.
Touchdown!
He's going deep. He's going over the touchdown again. Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another one. Obviously not under the circumstances we all hoped to be meeting on before the day commences with its slate of NFL playoff games. The Miami Dolphins are eliminated from the playoffs after an abysmal performance by Tua Tagovailoa and the offense for really the third straight game in a row. From coaching to the quarterback, it was not good yesterday. It was not nearly good enough. It wasn't even mediocre. It was poor. And listen, now we enter a offseason that's going to be full of questions. How does Mike McDaniel fix the back-to-back years? It's a pattern now where we've looked hot in the first half and then been somewhat stagnant in the second half. You were 11-4, and then you lost 3 straight. And it wasn't the defense. Sure, the defense got its ass handed to them against Baltimore, but they sure as hell bounced back against Buffalo, and they sure as hell did enough in Kansas City. You and your quarterback and your offense did not do enough. Now, who won't get a lashing from me is Tyreek Hill, because Tyreek Hill stepped up in this game given the opportunities he was afforded after not stepping up in the previous, 3 games leading up to that, including the Dallas Cowboys win. It's now, shout out to Neil. Neil's deleted his Twitter. He's so sick of Twitter. He's deleted it. But win or lose, I'm still here. Win or lose, I ain't going nowhere. Listen. People can be in their feelings right now, whatever they want about Tua, that's fine. Just remember, 2 years ago, you thought he wouldn't even play up to a starting quarterback level. 2 years ago, if I would have told you he'd lead the league in passing, you would have told me I'm out of my mind. So, have we seen growth and development from Tua? 110%. The problem with Tua is, right now, you were 2-6 in big games this year. 20% just is not good enough. That's it. I don't know what to tell you. Winning 2 of 8 games, that's not good enough. That's just not good enough. You beat the Chargers on opening day in a shootout where you had no run game and the defense didn't show up. When everyone thought the Chargers were going to be good, and you beat them in their house, great. You beat Dallas in your own at home, looking like you could have scored on that final drive, great. But the problem remains: Buffalo twice, KC twice, Philly, Baltimore. All big games, all big opponents heading into it. All had crucial moments near the end. All those losses had moments at the end of it where, listen, I can go over the KC game about how the ball shouldn't have been in his hands at the end of the game, but I said it before, even when I would add the context of the Jalen Waddle catch that was nullified because of penalty, the Tyreek Hill drop, and then the Tyreek Hill fumble. I added all, but even still, when I used to add that context to the situation, what would I say? Ball was still into his hands at the end of the game, and he wasn't good enough. And I think that's the most frustrating thing about Tua Tagovailoa. We've seen you do it. We have seen you step up in those moments. Arizona, Atlanta, after you threw the 2 picks in the final quarter. Again, the Chargers in Dallas this year. But we got to a point where the team I saw at the end of the season, would they even have come back from the Panthers when they were down 14-0? You remember how we got down on the Panthers and then we ended up blowing them out, but we were down 14-0? I started asking myself this actually after the Bills game. And would we have even have come back against this team we saw in the second half of the season? Would they even have come back against the Panthers? Like, offensively, we were so Jekyll and Hyde. And it was the second year in a row. And it goes back to what I would always say. I couldn't wait to see McDaniel's counterpunch. There's no way he doesn't have something in the bag after what happened to him last season. Blah, 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 blah. And what happens again? Quarterback struggles, and McDaniel has no counterpunch. Yesterday's loss falls at the feet of Tua Tagovailoa and Mike McDaniel. Period. Tua Tagovailoa didn't look half as good as he did last December in Buffalo. Didn't even look half as good. And now we get into the conundrum where, what do you do with the extension? And I'm on record. I said if they would have lost the Bills game and they lost this Chiefs game, he's going to get paid either way. I still stand by that. He's going to get paid. He just led the league in passing yards in his first full healthy season. We were playing for the number 1 seed in week 17. And we were playing for the 2 seed in the AFC East crown in week 18. Listen, I'm telling you, just from a business perspective, take your feelings out of it. Take all of our feelings out of it and how we're feeling right now. He's going to get paid. Justin Herbert got paid, man. He's a renowned choker. Daniel Jones got paid. I mean, what? This guy's going to get paid. I'm telling you right now. Prepare for it. I've been telling all y'all for this for weeks. He's going to get paid. And again, it comes down to saving money. Because they can play with his money and they can save money over the next 2 years. Listen, I'm not happy with Tua Tagovailoa. I'm not happy with Mike McDaniel. I'm not happy with my team right now. At all. At all. Listen, I'm going to tell you this. I wish we had another year where we didn't have to pay him. And we could see a second year fully healthy of Tua Tagovailoa and then make a decision. But I know what they're going to do because of the money. I know what they're going to do because of the money. I've been telling all of this for weeks. I was telling people on Twitter to cope. Cope. If we lose against Buffalo and KC, he's going to get, and in the first round of the playoffs, he's going to get paid. And I stand by, he's going to. This is unrealistic, bro. You can't think like this. Doesn't work like that, man. Daniel Jones making 40 to 45 million years. He's never even sniffed the league leader he's never sniffed the MVP conversation, which is something Herbert never did, and Herbert got paid. He's never, and Tua's done it 2 years in a row. If Tua would have beat Lamar Jackson and had a good game against Baltimore, it would have been him they were talking about MVP, not Lamar. That's a fact. If the roles were flipped and reversed. I'm telling you, man. Tua's going to get paid. And we got to hope. Nah, he's better than... Here's the thing. He's better than Daniel Jones. He's better than Tannehill. He's way better than Daniel Jones and Ryan Tannehill. Not even close. Tua can play. We've seen him play at a top 10 and a top 5 level. I've never seen Ryan Tannehill or Daniel Jones ever play at a top 5 or top 10 level. Again, what does it come down to? The same thing as in big moments. Tua is not consistent enough with it. I mean, it just is what it is, man. I really don't know what else to say. It literally just is what it is. And we're going to have to make do. We got to hope that Tua continues to grow and develop. We got to hope that... The problem is, the way this roster is constructed, right? The way this roster is constructed, we don't have time to sit around and wait. That's the problem. That's the problem. We don't have time to sit around and wait. That's the issue. We do not have time to sit around and wait for the coach and the quarterback to catch up to where we are. They need, it needs to be expedited here. Daniel Jones won a playoff game. That he did. 110%. You're on line. Who said he didn't? I never said he didn't. I mean, but here's the problem now we're going to run into, right? The guy threw for 3,200 yards that year. He threw for 15 touchdown passes. All right, we can talk about him winning the playoff game all we want, but that was, I mean, you talk about a guy who's limited. You guys want to talk about a guy who's limited. He might be the most limited quarterback in the NFL. Right? I mean, look at how he was against the second round against Philly. He was a disaster against Philly. 15 of 27, 135 yards and an interception. Sacked 5 times for 26 yards. He was awful against Philly. It is what it is. In my opinion, this is all McDaniel. He doesn't quite have the next level figured out. McDaniel has to be giving Tua audibles. So if the defense, you didn't finish your thought, brother. Just put your thought in the chat, and I'll bring it up. You don't have to donate. Just put it up. Finish your thought. Put it in the chat. Josh Hart says next year is the hot seat year for both. That's what I pretty much said yesterday. I'm going to tell you this how it goes. I'm going to tell you how this goes. Oh, so defensive changes, so Tua can too. Agreed. I'm going to tell you how this goes. Watch. I'm going to tell you how this goes. Ross is sitting there. McDaniel walks in. What went wrong? Injuries are going to get thrown on the table. But look what I did despite them this year and what I did last year. That's what's going to give him another year. Now, Tua, if it's a 5-year deal, when's the earliest you could put an out in? After 3 years? So this is what I say here. Tua's on the hot seat. And so is McDaniel if they underachieve. I mean, McDaniel might be gone next year if they underachieve. It might turn into, again, what if McDaniel underachieves, but, what if he feels backed in the corner and it's no more Mr. Nice Guy? He says, I want to bring in my guy. I elevated your guy as much as I could, but he's not letting me win. What if McDaniel pulls that? We saw McVay do it with Goff, and we saw Harbaugh do it with Garoppolo. What if he pulls that one? Anyways, I digress. With Tua, if you sign him and he underachieves next year, the best option you have is to try and draft a guy. And so until you can get out of Tua's contract, you have someone on a cheap contract. That would be the best, unless you, obviously in the meantime, you try to trade him. But now this is all hypothetically if it doesn't work and they got to move. Because, listen, or, again, I brought it up yesterday after Lewis broached the subject. And we're going to talk about him in a second here. Is Stephen Ross a wild card right now? That's what you got to ask yourself. Is Stephen Ross a wild card? His boy Harbaugh is floating out there. He sees how this roster's constructed. Does he believe to himself that that'll be the guy who gets him over the hump? I don't know. Again, look what he did to Tony Sparano. After what Tony Sparano did by getting us to the playoffs, did we all think he'd be sitting there in Harbaugh's den trying to convince him to become our head coach? Now listen, I'm not advocating for or against McDaniel in this statement. I'm just bringing the facts to the table of, is Stephen Ross a wild card? Terrence says, I was getting ready to say Harbaugh concerns me. I'm not bringing in Kirk Cousins, guys. Stop. I mean, Kirk Cousins is... You want to talk about being stuck in a guy with stats who can't win a playoff, who can't get it done on the next level. Kirk Cousins is doing that into his 30s. At least to his 24 and has time to figure it out. And he's only played one playoff game. Kirk Cousins played how many playoff games and how many times has he fallen on his face? Let's stop right now with the Kirk Cousins talk. I mean, Ray Finkel says, what do you mean, bro? He's had Stephon Diggs. He's had Justin Jefferson. What are we talking about with these weapons? He's had Dalvin Cook in his prime. He had AP. What are you talking about with these weapons? And yes, what do you mean, nah? Dalvin Cook in his prime and Justin Jefferson has been one of the best. What are we talking about right now? And, we're not... Another thing, trade for Justin Fields. What do we want Justin Fields for? Y'all call Tua limited. What do you think Justin Fields is as a passer? He's limited, man. Justin Fields is vastly limited right now. I'd rather trade for Sam Howell than I would for Justin Fields. I would rather trade for Sam Howell than I would for Justin Fields. That's it. Anthony Richardson ain't getting traded. Sorry. But Sam Howell's my guy. Sam Howell's the one I would... If you want to go make a trade and bring in competition, Sam Howell's the one that I would target. If you want to go bring in a guy that can extend a little bit, has an arm and everything, Sam Howell's the guy I would try to bring in. Because they're probably going to be moving off him. They're drafting at 2. That's it. New head coach, Titans head coach wants his own guy, Will Levis. Bro, you go bring me Will Levis or Sam Howell all day, baby. All day. Listen, raise your hand if you were advocating for the Dolphins to bring in Baker Mayfield this last offseason. People want to say I'm all this and that when it comes to Tua. Who was the guy saying bring in Baker Mayfield? Who was the guy? Right here, baby. And Baker took the Bucs to the playoffs. As a backup and a guy to push Tua this year, Baker would have been the move. But now I'll say get trade for Sam Howell if you wanna bring in someone in. That was the best option on the market. And he's the only, free agent option that took his team to the playoffs. He's been good this year. He threw for over 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. 64.3 completion percentage. Baker has not been trash this year. I don't know what any of you are watching. But anyways, that was my solution to bringing in a backup. And now I will say it. If you want to bring in someone, go trade for Sam Howell. So, listen, but we talked about Stephen Ross here and Harbaugh. So let's have this conversation. Here's a conversation for you. Is Stephen Ross even going to open up his checkbook? Is Stephen Ross even going to sit here and open up his checkbook to restructure and bring all these guys back? Because that's what's going to be brought to Stephen Ross's table. Hey, we need to extend Tua to free up money because we want to bring all these guys back. Like, think about this. People are advocating to pay Connor Williams. When are we going to see him? We're going to be riding Eichenberg for September and October until Connor Williams comes back on his shiny new contract. 2 torn ACLs in the last 3 or 4 years. And the word is he wants 10 plus million, like Robert Hunt. Isaiah Wynn. Now, listen, I'm just putting that out there because I will be the first to tell you this offense looks totally different with Connor Williams than when it does without him. So you won't, I'm just stating the facts. Because next year, we start off that season down our top 2 pass rushers. What's going to happen with AVG? And so what? And then you talk about Christian Wilkins. After you saw how Zach Sealer played this year and how Christian Wilkins played this year, does Christian Wilkins seem like a player who's worth 10 to 12 million more a season than Zach Sealer? What, just because we drafted him? And this is where the injury conversation with McDaniel is going to come into play of why I think he's going to get a pass. That's what they're going to say. I'm telling you right now, I don't even need to be a fly on the wall and I can hear the conversation. I had 11 wins this year and made the playoffs. I was battling for the 1 seed, the 2 seed, and the AFC East at the end of the season, but I didn't have my guys. Imagine if we would have had our guys. That's what he's going to say. But then if Stephen Ross is smart, let's call a spade a spade. If Stephen Ross is smart, you know what he's going to turn around and say? Vic didn't have his guys, and look how he performed. You, by the end of it, were only missing Isaiah Wynn and Connor Williams. They were that much of a difference as to why our offense was anemic the way it was over the last 3 weeks, including the playoffs. That answer ain't going to fly, with me at least. I'm going to be honest with you. Now you've heard Reason tell you the reason why he's going to get a pass. Now you're hearing what Reason would say in response to that reason. That's a lot of reason. I would look him dead in the eyes and I would say, buddy, Fangio, those are all Fangio injuries you're telling me about, and he put your team in a position to win against the Bills and lock up that AFC East, and he put your team in a position to win against Mahomes. And you and the quarterback didn't come up. You guys didn't step up in the moment. See, that's the issue. Now we're getting into it here. Yeah, the injuries piled up by the end of it. But and as banged up as Waddle and Mostert and Tyreek were, and Armstead was, and Hunt was, I get all that. But the real guy missing bodies was old Vicky boy. And what's funny is a lot of the people telling us Tua's trash or to move off Tua. Remember, the first half of the season, they told all of you Vic Fangio was trash and our defense was trash. Right? While the offense and Tua was doing things, they were out here apologizing to everyone and saying Tua was a franchise quarterback and dragging Vic Fangio through the mud. Then when the offense started to struggle, Tyreek caught no flack, McDaniel caught no flack, Tua caught all the flack, and they stopped talking about Vic Fangio. And there's multiple people guilty of that. Well, I was over here saying, yo, give this defense till week 8. Give this defense till week 8. Don't jump to conclusions on Fangio. Let him learn his personnel, and look at what happened by the end of the year. He was cover zeroing. We were worried about him. I talked to Omar Kelly about this. We were worried about him marrying what this personnel did well to what he wants to do, and he did exactly that. And look at the results we got at the end of it. You can say 26 points yesterday all you want. That game, listen, when it was 13-7, they gave us multiple chances in that second quarter and in the beginning of the third quarter to take that lead, and this offense sputtered and crashed like a B-52 bomber shot out of the sky. Period. Ain't no other way around it. So if I'm Ross and they ask me to open my checkbook and I want an explanation and they say, well, the injuries, I'll say, okay. So the defense is going to get better, Mike. That's great. You were missing Isaiah Wynn and Connor Williams. Were two offensive linemen really the difference in why our offense was anemic the way it was? And the answer is going to be no. That's it. The answer is going to be no. And we all know that. So, listen, I even, listen, I'm going to tell you this right now. I wish we had another year and we didn't have to pay Tua right now. But the objective business side of me says they're going to do it. Right? And I'm going to tell you this. If they underachieve next year, changes are coming. I don't know what's going to happen. But McDaniel, Tua, and Greer, something's going to happen if we underachieve next year. And Ross is a wild card for me. When you ask him to open up the checkbook, I'm going to tell you this right now. He'd open up the checkbook for Harbaugh, and I know that. I don't know, man. This is a difficult position to be in for our owner. It really is. Do you want to bring this core back? Because if Ross decides not to open up the checkbook and he wants change to come, what does that change entitle? The guy's a wild card, man. I tell you. Listen, I think McDaniel deserves another year, but I don't trust Stephen Ross as far as I can throw him. Let's be honest with ourselves. I do think, and I've said this before, I think McDaniel, if you ask me right now, I think McDaniel has a better chance of outlasting Tua Tagovailoa. Tua's been in for 4 years. McDaniel's been in for 2 years. McDaniel can say injuries and look at what I've done. Plus, look what I did, how I elevated your guy. Imagine what I could do with my own guy that I want to draft, that I scout, that I evaluate as perfect for what I want to do from the ground up, and I can build him from the ground up. You know, McDaniel's got a list of reasons why that he can use, or excuses, or context, whatever you want to label it as. He's got a list of them of why he can last longer and outlast. Something's gonna, if they underachieve next year, and Tua and McDaniel underachieve next year, something's happening. I'm telling you right now. Something is going to happen. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now, let's get into a few things here. Obviously, it's a recap show, but we got some stuff here to get into, okay? Let's get into it. Article from Barry Jackson. All right. Last night, 11:53. Straight talk. Who's to blame on Dolphins offense that shrunk again versus a good team? September ended with the Dolphins hanging 70 points on Denver, and observers asking whether this would become one of the most prolific offenses in NFL history. Season ended with the Dolphins offense again coming up woefully short against a formidable opponent. The Dolphins mustered just 7 points on 11 possessions in Saturday's dismal 26-7 playoff loss at Kansas City. And that shouldn't have surprised anyone who has mostly suffered through the 6 previous games of underwhelming Dolphins offense, only one of which was a win, narrowly, against Dallas. Here are the final points on offense against the playoff teams on Miami's schedule this season. They scored 20 against Buffalo, 10 against Philly, 14 against Kansas City, 22 against Dallas, 19 against Baltimore, 14 against Buffalo, and 7 against the Chiefs on Saturday. The offense was so lame and tepid on Saturday that Miami opened 0 for 7 on third downs and finished 1 for 12. Any team that fashions itself a Super Bowl contender must be able to win a shootout or come close to it against teams with great quarterbacks. The Dolphins have displayed no ability to do that this season, other than the Chargers game, really, I guess. Even 24 points against a good team has been an insurmountable threshold for Miami. And considering the presence of all-pro receiver Tyreek Hill, 2 other top 100 players in Armstead and Waddle, and 2 of the fleetest running backs in football, the Dolphins' offensive work against strong competition has been an indictment on the team, this quarterback, and the offensive coaching staff. If I woke up after a game like this, I'd puke on the floor, Dolphins broadcaster Kim Bokamper said. He ain't lying. The Dolphins can try and comfort themselves by reminding themselves that Tua Tagovailoa led the league in passing yards, and the Dolphins were second behind Dallas in points per game. Never have statistics felt more hollow. Here are the raw, sobering numbers. The Dolphins this season, including the playoffs, had 71 offensive possessions in their 7 games against playoff teams. Only 12 of those 71 possessions ended in touchdowns, while 27 in punts, 10 on turnovers, 12 on downs, 8 with field goals, and 2 when halves ended. So it was no surprise that Miami went 1-6 in those games, including 3 consecutive demoralizing losses to end their season. So who's to blame? Well, let's start here. Tagovailoa is an excellent quarterback against average and poor teams and usually mediocre one against good teams. We have seen enough of a sample size where that conclusion doesn't feel like a rush to judgment. The Dolphins better hope that miraculously changes because there's no viable, realistically obtainable alternative at this position, at least in the next year. Tagovailoa had an 88 rating or worse in 5 of Miami's 7 games against playoff teams this season. As perspective, 27 quarterbacks had a passer rating of 88 or higher this season. He threw 7 interceptions in those 7 games, delivered too many throws that were higher behind receivers, missed on 2 potential touchdown throws in the first Kansas City game, and couldn't do nearly enough to sustain drives. His performance the past 3 games, a 71.9 passer rating against Baltimore, a 62.7 against Buffalo, and a 63.9 against KC on Saturday, create serious questions about whether the Dolphins should invest $250 million into a Tagovailoa long-term or play out next season on his $23.1 fifth-year option. In other words, basically delaying the decision for a year. Perhaps Tagovailoa can become more accurate and efficient against good defenses. He will likely get another chance next season. The problem is he lacks the athleticism or escapability to make something out of nothing or to consistently make defenses pay if they bottle up and the play called for him. Tagovailoa, incidentally, is now 10-11 in December and January games. Before late garbage time Saturday, Tagovailoa-led offense entered the fourth quarter averaging less than 3 yards per play in the 34 plays, excluding the 53-yard touchdown to Hill. Miami's most explosive playmakers, Hill, Waddle, and Achane, touched the ball only 7 of Miami's first 26 plays. That's primarily the fault of McDaniel, whose play calling on Saturday lacked the creative flair that we have seen much this season. Waddle had just 1 catch for 17 yards in the first 3 quarters. Achane had only 9 touches and mustered just 30 yards. And McDaniel mistakenly threw on 3rd and 2 and 4th and 2 after 4 solid runs by Raheem Mostert in the first half. This was a case of the coach outthinking himself. It isn't the first time we have seen that from McDaniel. During a news conference exchange with the always affable McDaniel last week, I cited the Dolphins' offensive ineffectiveness against good teams and asked if he intends to continue what they have been doing with the hope they do it better, or if he needs to try something new, whether it's more hurry-up offense, more gimmick plays, or something that he hasn't used in his playbook this season. Mike McDaniel implied he was more comfortable with continuing to do what they've been doing with the hope for better execution. For a 7th time against a playoff team this season, that didn't work. Chris Sims said Miami's offense has become too predictable against good teams, often running when teams play 2 safeties deep, often passing otherwise. That's not always the case, but stout defenses clearly have a handle on how to defend this team. Hill bobbled and couldn't complete a touchdown pass against Baltimore, then couldn't make what would have been a game-tying touchdown late in the Buffalo game. The 3rd through 6th receivers generally couldn't generate enough separation. Cedric Wilson Jr., Braxton Berrios, River Craycraft had some good moments this season, but more is needed from the secondary receiver options. The Chase Claypool experiment yielded nothing. The offensive line wasn't as good against good teams. Hardly a surprise. Right tackle Austin Jackson allowed 2 sacks in the past 2 weeks. At center, Connor Williams' run blocking was badly missed since the season-ending ACL injury against Tennessee. There were too many self-inflicted errors, including Wilson Jr.'s 3rd down illegal formation penalty that essentially foiled a first-half drive. Miami was the only AFC team that didn't get a touchdown reception from the tight end position this season. Durham Smythe is competent and reliable, but a big, skilled receiving tight end would have helped Hill and Waddle when they were bottled up. The Dolphins were missing 6 key defensive players on Saturday, but here's what's disturbing about the long-term future. Aside from the excellence of Williams and the good work of early season starter Isaiah Wynn, this otherwise was Miami's offense at full strength. And the lack of offensive punch in 7 games against worthy teams leaves a resounding conclusion that they're simply not good enough to win anything meaningful in January. And that's what I come back to. This is the problem. I come back to Stephen Ross opening up the checkbook. If he brings the injury thing to me, I'll say to him, okay, the defense gets better, but your offense, like I said before this article, you had everyone but Isaiah Wynn and Connor Williams. They would have made the difference as to why we're anemic. That's the problem he's going to run into. That's just not a good enough. That's if the defense was struggling and we were losing games because of defense due to these injuries, that answer would hold weight. The problem is that answer ain't going to hold weight with your offense and the woes. It doesn't explain the woes. So, let's keep going on this, on who's to blame. Everyone wanted to bring up the Kurt Warner video this week, but no one wanted to bring up what Kurt Warner was saying in terms of McDaniel. He was also giving a lot of blame to McDaniel in that video, talking about the route concepts, how this offense isn't hot read friendly, etc., right? And then yesterday, what happened was very interesting yesterday. So, Kurt Warner was replying to some people because he tweeted out, right? Sitting here frustrated watching the Dolphins offense tape back. First tip my hat to KC, D, and Spags. Miami had no chance. But on the other side, no pressure plan. Confusing concepts, still struggling, having to work beyond one read. Tua is playing too fast. So, he was asked, you've always been a huge Tua supporter, even when giving constructive criticism. What do you think's holding this offense back, play calling, QB? He said, I think they have to reconfigure their pass concepts. Continue to build around what they do well, but I feel the structure can be set up better to make it easier to work through progressions that make sense when number one isn't there. Then maybe that helps Tua to move through the progression and not feel like he has to make the throw to one most of the time. Right? That's what he said. Right? Talking about the concepts and he's talked about this before. Right? And someone asked him, hey, at some point you have to consider that maybe Tua's just not it. Kurt Warner said, hey, you're right, but he does some things really well, better than anyone in the league, and I feel there are some issues with their concepts. So Warner said he's not ready to go there yet. So I want to show you guys exactly what he's talking about. He posted this to Twitter. Listen, we've talked about this when we've broken down the film. You got routes clustered together, etc. Watch what Kurt Warner says when he's talking about the concepts and how it's not helping Tua, how some of these play designs aren't helping Tua, whether it's make the throw or go through his progressions. Look at what he says here.
All right, let's take a look at a couple plays from Miami, and I'll give you an idea of what I was tweeting about last night and some of the things that makes it hard. Okay, so this is going to be kind of a common play here. We're going to have Tyreek Hill on the backside. He's going to be running a solo slant over here, and we're going to go 4 strong. So we're going to get 4 receivers to the top running a strong side play. Okay, so common play, slant back here, trying to get the one-on-one. Don't get it, you're going to work to the front side, okay? But, these are the little things, the little details, okay? So we come back to the front side, and we've got a hook sitting kind of right there in between the hash and the numbers. Okay, no problem. We've got a swing going out here. But if that's the case, then I'd like this receiver to kind of stay in this area. This receiver is going to come to the inside. And so what you're going to see is Tua doesn't like the slant back here, as you would assume. So he's coming back to this other side. And you're going to see how these two receivers stack each other. Okay, so they're stacked on top of each other when Tua wants to get there and throw it. So what does it do? It forces Tua, along with a little bit of pressure, to throw it high. You got to get it up and over this guy to try to throw it to this guy. And this is the one that leads to an interception. And so it's just little details of, if we're going to bring this guy in here, why are we stopping this guy? Just keep going, okay? So we'll look at the slant. We don't have it. Then we can work back the other direction. Or vice versa. If we're going to let this guy sit in here, which a lot of teams will do, they'll keep 4 guys to the strong side, no problem. Then push this guy up and keep him out here where we stay away from this defender right here. And instead of making it really hard on our quarterback, now maybe we're saying, oh, we got to wait till he gets all the way over here. But that's the kind of stuff that's really tough for a quarterback You don't have this. You want to get back to your read very quickly, and the timing and spacing ends up leading to this interception. Okay? Here's another play. And so, the first question you always have to ask when you're seeing a play or designing a play is, who's the primary guy on the play? Okay? And so, knowing what Miami likes to do, they love to run this little skinny post and attack between the hash and the numbers. Okay? So I have to assume on this play, that's their primary. Right there, he's hitting that same area on the quick post. That's going to be their primary receiver there. Okay? So once you ask yourself who the primary is, then to me, all of the routes should be complementary routes. Okay? So we're going to run the post right here. So I look to myself and I say, okay, looking at different coverages, who's going to be able to take that away from me? So let's just use this cover 2 look right here, or let's lose a 2 high look so it leaves 2 defenders underneath to the inside. So if I'm running the post, okay, I say to myself, okay, there's 2 possible people that could take it away. First, it's this Mike linebacker. If he drops deep in that area, he can take it away. So the first thing I would want to do is I'd want to put this defender in front of the Mike linebacker. So the Mike linebacker takes it away, boom, I just replace, and they actually have a play similar to that they ran in the game. But here, put him right there, okay? So then if this guy comes down, then I've got the shot over the top. If this guy comes down and this guy falls off, then I want to replace that guy with my outside receiver. So what you're going to see here is they can kind of hold this off with the inside guy, cover it with the outside guy, cover it here. And so everything has to be predicated off, what are we trying to get? Okay, we're trying to get this, saying a 2 high, trying to beat the safety, so we're trying to get in that hole. Now use your other 2 guys to use up or attack these 2 defenders. So now I've got 3 on 2 to that side, and that's where we give our quarterback options, because quarterback, feels somebody falling off. I don't know which one it is. This guy covers it. This guy covers that. Where do I go with the football? So always trying to design plays with the primary guy in mind, okay? Trying to get this guy, okay? How can I still attack that coverage? If I don't get this guy, how do I still attack that coverage? And then on the backside, right? If we've got certain coverages that we don't like this particular primary against, or this particular concept, if we go hook, post, we don't like it against cover 3, say. Now let's put our cover 3 beater back to the backside, so now my quarterback has options no matter what he's going to do. But certain things like this where you allow a defense, and most defenses are going to have those 2 defenders over to that side, that they can take it away. We want to make sure that our concepts overload that defense, put somebody in conflict, or in this case, put 2 people in conflict. Boom, go right there. This guy's got to make a decision. Makes the read easy and definitive for the quarterback. He goes back, boom, replace. Okay? He goes back, you're going to replace, and this guy squeezes, replace that guy with the next guy, so now you can read through it, and it just makes it easy, more definitive, and again, your quarterback is not trying to jam it into one guy. He's able to read through it and have a great option if that first guy is not open. All right, let's take a look at a couple plays from Miami.
There you go. Kurt Warner breaking down the all-22 and talking about how, it's play design and conceptually, it's up to a coach to make it easy for a quarterback to roll through his progressions and to get proper spacing so the timing can be right on offense. And that is, that is an issue, right? And so, again, we go back to who's to blame, McDaniel or Tua, right? We've shown all this. Who's to blame, McDaniel or Tua? And I say all that to say this, both. Both are to blame for what has gone down. Both. McDaniel and Tua, as tied as the hip they are both sharing. They are both sharing the blame here. 110%. 110%. And it is what it is. And now we have to hope they figure it out. And by the way, people saying Tua goes to his first read. There's literally analytics out there. Only 6 quarterbacks in the NFL went to their first read. Less than Tua. Not more than Tua, less than Tua. Tua was the I think, how do I word this properly? Tua went to his first read the 7th least amount amongst all NFL quarterbacks. That's what happened this year. The analytics are literally out there and have been out there. So Tyreek Hill, he came out after the game and he said, "This is the right group of people to win a chip. We have to put together drives to help the defense out. We can't just be a bunch of front runners." Wow. He ain't lying. He ain't lying. We don't want you to be a bunch of front runners. How does that sound for you? What a disappointing season. My God. As we get into the snap counts for yesterday, just nothing else to say. What a disappointing season. Oh, my God. As we get into the snap counts, Ingold, when we thought this would be a run-heavy game, Ingold gets 12 snaps. They extended Alec Ingold to give him 12 snaps in a playoff game. Makes sense. Why not? Jesus Lord. Waddle and Hill, 41, 44 snaps. Cedric Wilson, clear and away. Wide receiver 3. Raheem Moser, running back 1. He had 27 snaps. Achane had 23. So, there you go. But Waddle comes back and he gets right back into it. Right back into it. When we get into the defensive snap counts, a few things to point out here. Look at all the new guys. Malik Reed, Justin Houston, and Bruce Irvin. Look at that. 31 snaps from Malik Reed, 22 for Justin Houston, and 12 for Bruce Irvin right out of the gate. Nick Needham had 1 snap. Ethan Bonner had more snaps than Nick Needham yesterday. Told y'all he ain't back. He is not coming back. I just don't think they're fans of him. Eli Apple clearing away CB2, playing 92% of the snaps. Oof. Thomas says, "Cheers to 17 months. Disgusted from last night." You and me both. Man, I'm sad today. I'm telling you, it's sad. It feels like my dog just died. Like, I am sad today. Today sucks. Our coach and our quarterback let us down big time. And you ain't going to find, I've wanted McDaniel since we were looking for an OC when we hired Godsey in Stoodsville. You're not going to find a guy who supports McDaniel big more than me let us down. You're not going to find many that support Tua more than I do. Big time let down. I wish we had another season and we didn't have to make this financial decision on Tua. I want to see another season of him healthy just as much as the next person. Trust me. After that last 3-game stretch, trust me, I want to see it too. When you get into the PFF grades, offensively, look at this. River Craycraft is your highest graded offensive player at 68.7. Robert Hunt, number 2. Devon Achane, number 3. Tyreek, and 4. Wilson, 5. Julian Hill and Armstead tied for 6th. Tua right behind them at a 60.2. Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg and Austin Jackson, Braxton Berrios and Alec Ingold, your 5 worst rated offensive players. When you look at Tua, just not good enough, man. Just not good enough. 1 for 5 from the deep level. 4 for 7 from the intermediate level. 8 for 15 from short level. And then 7 for 10 from behind the line of scrimmage. And where you see a common theme occur is here. Tua Tagovailoa was kept clean on 71.7% of his dropbacks. Had a 58.6 completion percentage, 165 yards, and a touchdown. His adjusted completion percentage, because he had 3 drops, would have went up to 69%. Passer rating was about 86.1. Under pressure, Tua was 3 for 10 and an interception for 34 yards. Adjusted completion percentage of about 37.5. Time to throw, 229 when he was kept clean. When he was under pressure, 312. Averaged out about a 2.52 average time to throw all game. Just not good enough. Look at his NFL pass rating. 86.1 when he was kept clean yesterday. 1.7 when he was under pressure. Ouch. Sorry, Tua. That's not good enough. Do you think our inability to run between the tackles is more McDaniel stubbornness or not having the right lineman to do it? I think it's both. I think we are able to run it again. I mean, look at Mostert yesterday. We're able to run against between the tackles, but I think, again, McDaniel's stubbornness. But I also do think we ran much easier between the tackles when Isaiah Wynn was out there. So I think it's both. Blocking-wise, Dolphins gave up 12 pressures yesterday. 2 sacks, 9 hurries, 1 quarterback hit. Austin Jackson, 5 pressures. The guy's turned back into Austin Jackson. We paid Austin Jackson, and he turned back into Austin Jackson. Go figure, huh? Lucky us. Defensive grades. Ethan Bonner, 91.3. Deshaun Hand, 83.3. Justin Houston had a 73.1. Malik Reed had a 70.5. And Zach Sealer. I want you to think about this. Justin Houston and Malik Reed were Ethan Bonner, who was a late call-up, were 3 of our highest-rated defensive players yesterday. David Long had a 28.8. Bottom 5 guys were David Long, Bruce Irvin, Deshaun Elliott, Eli Apple, and Christian Wilkins. Coverage matchups. Here we go. Who's ready for this one? Eli Apple targeted 6 times, allowed 3 receptions for 21 yards, a first down, and a touchdown. He allowed the touchdown to Rashee Rice. Jalen Ramsey targeted 6 times, allowed 3 receptions for 12 yards. He had a pass breakup as well. Deshaun Elliott targeted 5 times, allowed 3 receptions for 39 yards and 2 first downs. David Long targeted 4 times, allowed 4 receptions, a first down on each reception, and he allowed 70 yards in coverage. Kader Kohu targeted 4 times, allowed 4 receptions for 70 yards and 3 first downs. Brandon Jones targeted 3 times, allowed 2 receptions, 14 yards. Duke Riley targeted twice, allowed 2 first downs to Travis Kelce. We were missing Baker yesterday. I'm telling you that much. Elijah Campbell targeted once, allowed 1 reception. I mean, you look at Travis Kelce here compared to last time we faced him. Last time we faced him, linebackers had him and safeties. Deshaun Elliott, he only targeted 3 times. Now look at them feasting off of him. 10 targets yesterday. And he had a drop. He had 2 drops against Deshaun Elliott. And Rashee Rice just gave our guys the work. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to say. Those are your PFF grades. Not pretty. Not pretty at all. And as we get into the passing chart now, let's get into Mahomes. 23 of 41. 262, a touchdown interception. Look at him. Look at him just take what the defense is giving to him. That's what this screams to me. That middle of the field and underneath stuff. Look at. Only threw the ball 3 times beyond 20. Just taking what the defense gives him. Just being smart with the football. Taking what the defense gives him. Being smart with the football. What we needed Tua Tagovailoa to be the last 3 weeks. But Tua wants to talk about it in the pressers instead of actually going out there and executing it. And then you look at Tua. This is his passing chart. Again, look at this. Minus 18.1% over completion percentage. Not good. He was just above 50%. Obviously had the touchdown on a ball that the wind caught, just like it did for Mahomes earlier in the game. Two straight games with under 200 yards, too. What do you have, 173 against the Bills, and now he had 199? Not good enough, man. Not good enough. That's all there is to it. Not good enough. All right, continuing on here. We still got some stuff to go over here. We ain't done. All right. Going over the next gen stats for the game. Tua Tagovailoa had the longest completed air distance, 43.5 yards. Patrick Mahomes had 32.3. Fastest ball carrier in the game was Tyreek Hill at 20.29. Rashee Rice got up to 20.21. Fastest sacks, Karlaftis in about 3.4 seconds. Now you see here, they had him 1 for 5 on deep shots. Right? Now, you go back to PFF. They had him 1 for 5 as well. On the intermediate level, next gen stats, they had him 4 for 6. And obviously, you remember PFF, they had him 4 for 7. On the short level, here, Tua, 8 for 17. PFF, they had him 8 for 15. And then behind the line of scrimmage, they have him here 7 for 10. And then on the flip side, they had him 7 for 10 too. So there you go. All right. And Patrick Mahomes just dealing against us. Rushing. Apparently the next gen stats have not been updated for rushing. Either have they for receiving, but defensive, pass, rush. See the average separation from quarterback here. Melvin Ingram was the best, and he was well beyond the league average. While Jones, Omenihu, and Dana was right there at the league average, but Omenihu and Chris Jones were beneath it. Oof. Tough. All right, well, let's keep going here. We got stuff to talk about too from the 33rd team. Has the Tua Tagovailoa era already peaked for the Miami Dolphins? Another promising season for the Miami Dolphins came to a disappointing end. The Dolphins were down 5 starters on defense in the wild card round, but the offense was the bigger disappointment in the 26-7 loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Dolphins had a 29.7% success rate, according to True Media, the 27th lowest rate in a playoff game since 2000. Miami's loss to Buffalo in last year's wild card game was the 19th lowest. For as much of a pattern can appear in 2 years, the Dolphins are developing a habit of playing their worst football at the end of the season. Here's Miami's EPA per play on offense by game during the past 2 seasons. Look at how high it is. And then once you look at it just steadily decline, eh? Look at that. Oh my God. With the way the season ended and the failure to produce anything in the passing game against the Chiefs, the focus for the offseason will center in the offseason and the ceiling of Tua Tagovailoa. The immediate future of the quarterback is not in doubt. Miami picked up to his 5th-year option, which will pay him guaranteed $23.1 million for 2024, but that represents a bump from his $9.6 million cap hit in 2023. That 5th-year option starts the Dolphins down the expensive quarterback contract path, which will alter how the team can build the roster. For a team already built around stars and big contracts, that's a big leap. Tagovailoa is already the last of the top 2020 quarterbacks to get an extension. This offseason was the first time this class was eligible for an extension. Burrow, Herbert, and Hurts all got big deals. The Packers hedged on Jordan Love with a short-term extension covering any risks of the 5th-year option. Still, the 2023 season was a positive sign for the quarterback, and it would be hard to imagine the Packers not getting something done long-term. That leaves more questions about Tagovailoa's future than any of his contemporaries. It will be a question that lingers through Miami's offseason. Each drive against a good team and each failed fourth-quarter comeback becomes a referendum on what Tagovailoa has done and can do as a quarterback in Miami. We've seen this offense click when everything works, but when something goes wrong, the quarterback has not fixed the problem. That's the feature and a bug of this current offense, one built on timing and precision. Tagovailoa doesn't typically get enough credit for his role in making that work. Words like timing and anticipation get thrown out, but there are a few quarterbacks who get the ball out as quickly and as far down the field as Tagovailoa did the past 2 seasons. Fewer would have had the trust in the receivers to be where they're supposed to be and the ability to place the ball accurately to the spot it's supposed to be. It's a popular opinion to downplay the Miami offense as hiding to its flaws, and to an extent it does. The quick throws over the middle and the league's fastest wide receivers blowing by defenders can help mask a lack of top-tier arm strength that many of the league's best quarterbacks possess. But Tagovailoa's release has also helped cover up an offensive line that is relatively not effectively pass blocked during the past 2 seasons. It was a unit that ranked 31st in ESPN's pass block win rate this season. This even goes back to 2020 season when the Dolphins tried to cover their offensive deficiencies up by spamming RPOs. Tagovailoa was 14th in success rate when nothing about that offense should have been around average. Yet, the way Tagovailoa has lifted the offense leaves little to no margin for error. When the defense sells out to stop a key element, there isn't much of a plan B. And because of the timing of the offense, when things go wrong, they look like they go really wrong. We saw that when the Chargers and 49ers aggressively took away the middle of the field at the end of last season. We saw that a bit of that against Kansas City in the wildcard game. The Chiefs did all they could to mess with Miami's timing and clamp down with what they wanted to do on Tagovailoa's interception in the first quarter. The Chiefs rotated their safety look from too high to single high before the snap, then back to too high at the snap. With Tyreek Hill pressed on the outside and the pocket closing in, Tagovailoa sailed the pass for the pick. And look, you can see here, Tua makes the right throw. He just sailed it, right? That's the issue. He got it to the right place, just sailed it. And Kurt Warner broke down why he sailed it because of the route underneath it, right? He had to get it over that linebacker and over that route, and it caused it to sail. Tagovailoa had one of his worst games throwing between the numbers where he went just 9 of 17 in average, minus .70 EPA per play. Without much of a downfield passing game, the Dolphins tried to go heavy on screens, but the Chiefs were all over those too. Miami had an 18.2% success rate on 11 throws at or behind the line of scrimmage. 25 of Tagovailoa's 39 pass attempts were short of the sticks. Much of the Dolphins' schematic plan was covered up, and there was no second reaction or out-of-structure answers. Miami had nothing else to try. That has become the biggest issue for Tagovailoa and the Dolphins in the games they have struggled. It's the one that needs to be dissected the most to figure out what the stealing of this marriage of quarterback and offense can be. So what comes next? The top-level play of quarterbacks around the league now, more than ever, centers around the way a quarterback can create offense when the answers aren't there. While Tagovailoa has been more than the Dolphins could have hoped in structure, he is, after all, fourth amongst quarterbacks in EPA per play over the past 2 seasons. There's no bigger gap between when things are going right and wrong than there is for the Dolphins. Perhaps there could be a schematic fix for that too. Maybe with more trust in an offensive line to hold up deeper into the play, Miami could have longer developing routes that would allow more time for readjusting. Or maybe it's the way because the quarterback needs it to be. One thing is clear, the Dolphins need a counter move, something that has to change. The development of a run game was a positive this season, but it didn't help when the defenses suffocated the pass. It will be difficult for the Dolphins to hang with top teams if the problem solving can't be done on the fly. Miami has this offseason to figure out what the root cause is and how to fix it. That could come from personnel changes up front. It could come from a revamped way to run this offense, or it could come with the realization that something more is needed from the quarterback position, finding Mike McDaniel's Matthew Stafford. There's no harm in asking the questions, but Miami is running out of time to find the answer. And again, he even kind of puts it at the feet of Mike McDaniel as well as Tua Tagovailoa right there, talking about how there's no answers when this goes wrong, and he's talking about it structurally as well as from Tua's standpoint, right? Carlos says, I won't be hyped until they win in December. Been a fan since I was 5, and I'm 45. The Heat and the Marlins have won more championships. Tua's issue is 7 out of the 10 throws. He has 2 seconds to throw, and with the scheme, it works a good part of the time. The other 3 out of 10, he's afraid to allow it to develop. And yesterday, another thing that's not being talked about, Tua made some bad throws on some very easy throws. Tua made some very bad, inexcusable throws on some easy throws yesterday. Some swing outs that had a blocker and had space ahead of them. And Tua made a bad throw on easy, simple throws. I've never seen Tua struggle throwing to the flats like I did yesterday. That was ridiculous. That was just nuts. Just nuts to me. Man, again, I'm not happy with our quarterback. I'm not happy with our coach right now. I mean, that article highlights not only, again, an article that highlights Tua's struggles and also the structural struggles of how this offense is designed right now. So, you're scheming out to get the ball out quick to mask the offensive line, but at the same time, because you're scheming it to get out quick, structurally, you're holding this offense back concept-wise in your routes and what you want to do downfield. That's why we got to get this O-line fixed. If you get this O-line fixed, are they all of a sudden not scheming to get the ball out quick? And does that change what we're doing offensively? Fair question to ask. Listen, guys, enjoy football. I'm going to be back tomorrow with Omar Kelly. It's going to be a good one. We are going to dive into it tomorrow. Me and Omar Kelly. We're going to examine some more hard questions, some more tough topics. Smash the like button. Subscribe if you're new as we get into this off season with questions. And it's going to be interesting to see what the answers are from the Miami Dolphins. Sucks to be here. It's a sad, somber day to be a Dolphin fan. Our offense sucked yesterday from the coach to the quarterback, and here we are. Fins up.